So tell me, how do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. How do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? Right before I hit the ground, son, how you came along and found me. Right before I hit the ground, son, how you came along and found me. Some will say it's magic, but I know that you did all that. You're the reason, there's no doubt. Doesn't matter just how many times I tried, there could only be a single reason why. So tell me, how do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. How do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? Right before I hit the ground, son, how you came along and found me. Right before I hit the ground, son, how you came along and found me. There's no doubt when I feel your love, call me crazy and out of touch, but I know that it's from above. Tell me, how do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. How do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? Right before I hit the ground, son, how you came along and found me. You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. Right before I hit the ground, son, how you came along and found me.
Ooh, I've been stacking up the years I spent trading punches with the enemy. Ooh, built myself a double thick stone tower of lies higher than the eye can see. Trapped in my flesh and bone.
morning. How's everybody doing? Fair, okay, sure, all right. I don't know which one of you is praying for the weather, but well done, man. God is answering your prayers unless you're praying for hot temperatures. It is so nice out there, isn't it? How many of you love this time of year? Fall lovers, man, it's great. The leaves, the smell. I love the smell of fire. Like just burn something around me. It's like, yeah, that's good. That's good. But enough about me. What?
You're not still on fire right now, are you?
No, not right now. Not right now. Well, yeah. Well, welcome to Village Church, both in person and online. We're so glad that you have chosen to spend your Sunday morning here with us. We're going to have a great time this morning. I want to run through a few things as we get moving. If you are here for the first time today, if you would take a blue card like this, it's called our first card, fill that out, take it to the information desk in the lobby, and they will present you with a free gift today. It's just our way of connecting and saying thanks for coming to Village. So that's there to take advantage of. Our hub students, our 6th through 12th graders, are meeting here tonight, 6 o'clock, going to have a blast hanging out right here in this room. Baskets, and again, I joked with you, we've just newly renovated this space, and so I'm still learning, but baskets are in the back of the room and to the back, my left, your right, okay? So if you came ready to give today, the baskets are there for Village offering. Also, we have what we call our high five offering that we do. And it's been kind of hit or miss coming back, getting back into some sort of routine because of projects and looking for ways to give. But we have decided to give in the direction with High Five over the next few weeks in the direction of our healthcare workers and being able to provide meals for them, being able to bless those who bless us so much because, man, right now they are doing, well, not right now, they always do a fantastic job. But our thoughts, prayers, and we just want to so encourage them right now in this time. So every dime given toward High Five over the next few weeks is going in that direction to help feed our healthcare workers, to just be a blessing to them as they serve on the front lines protecting all of us. So if you came ready to get for High Five, that's where that is going. Okay.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Good job.
Thank you. Hey, man, this weather is incredible.
Incredible.
Yesterday, I read this somewhere that it was 62 degrees as a high with like 0% humidity.
I don't think that's right.
What?
I thought it was warmer than that.
Oh, my bad.
62?
My bad. I got my weather app and my UGA, Georgia Bulldogs app messed up. That was the score of the Georgia game yesterday.
62 and 0. Yeah, I got it.
And then I got a friend who's a Bama fan, and he went and they scored 63 yesterday. I was like, you always got to have one up. Just give us one. Just give us one. And he did. He gave us one more point. But
hey, I actually did a wedding yesterday.
You had a wedding yesterday.
In Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, was anything going on in Knoxville,
Tennessee?
Oh, my
goodness. Just a wedding.
Just a wedding.
Yeah.
The volunteers volunteered not to play because of the wedding?
Yeah, but I told them, I was like, there's no place a Georgia Bulldog fan would rather be on a Saturday than Knoxville. And but I saw more orange yesterday than if I'd been at a DOT Harvest Festival. I'm just telling you.
At the Pumpkin Chunkin'.
There's so much orange. But I did tell them it was Tennessee Florida Day, so it's the one Saturday a year I say go Vols.
Everybody's rooting for volunteers. That's right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Andrew, and the band. And good to see you, band. Everybody doing all right?
We are so
Sarah,
glad
Ben, and everybody.
Yes. Good morning. How are you? Hey, I'm going to ask you to stand up, turn, and wave at somebody. Say hello. Give them an eye five. You know, you can just do the eyebrows if you want to. But we're so glad you're here. My name's Andrew. This is Kat on the bass. Cody's on the drums back here. Hey, Sarah on vocals. Heath on electric. Shelby on the keys back there. We're excited to sing with you today. Yeah, we're going to sing some songs together. If you don't know the words, we're going to put them up, but we are super glad that you're here, so we just invite you to sing along. Going to sing about being in our Father's house. Sometimes on this journey, I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. My story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. No, failure won't define me, that's what my Father does. Ooh. Lay your burdens down. Ooh. Check your shame at the door. It ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Yeah. Arrival's not the end game. The journey's where you are. You never want it perfect, you just want it by heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Lay your burdens down. Here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door. It ain't well anymore. You're in the Father's house. He calls us all, tells us we can trust Him, draws us to Himself. Prodigals come home, the helpless find hope. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors fling wide, the dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in a room. The Jericho walls are quaking, strongholds now shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in a room. Yeah, love is breaking through when the Father's in a room. Lay your burdens down. Here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door. It ain't well anymore. You're in the Father's house. Lay your burdens down. You're in the Father's house. Hey, we're glad that you're here. I love that line, check your shame at the door. It's not welcome anymore, right? And we talk about that a lot, and there's a really big difference in guilt and shame and conviction, right? And a lot of times, and I'll be honest, I've been in places and I've been in conversations, even in spiritual conversations, where it felt more like someone was trying to lay guilt on me to draw me to God. And here's the difference, right? Guilt and shame. Guilt, it makes you cast your eyes down and it pushes you away. That's what shame does when someone tries to shame you. Conviction does this, and this is who Jesus is. He lifts our eyes up and He pulls us close, right? Because there's still things in our lives that can be damaging us and hurting us, and He says, I want more for you, right? And He'll never use shame to leverage that, because He died for shame. He died on a cross to put guilt and shame to an end. He'll never use that in our direction. But instead, He draws us close. And sometimes it may be hard things to hear, but He never scolds and leaves us. Instead, He teaches and draws us close and says, let's do better. And that's the King and the Savior that we sing about. And we're going to keep singing that this morning as we talk about who He is and what He's done. The people come together, strangers, neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, of kingdom come. Here's His word. Don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Oh, 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 oh. We're gonna sing His name, Jesus. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation, is in His blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, His kingdom come. Here we go. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear evil. Fix your eyes on this one true. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. We're gonna sing, swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Sing that, swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. We're gonna sing His name, the name of Jesus. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation, is in His blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, His kingdom come. And that is our prayer, isn't it? That His kingdom would just come and be with us. We're going to sing one more this morning, and it's a song we haven't done in a while, but it's really one of my favorites. And it's a song called Graves in the Gardens. And some of you are familiar with this song, but I think the most powerful part of this whole thing is that this is who our God is. And the tag in the chorus just says this. It says, you turn graves into gardens. Because that's what He did after He gave His life. And they placed Him in a tomb. And then 3 days later, He turned a grave, a place that we think of that represents death and mourning and sadness, into a garden, a place that we know brings life and offers life to others. And it's just this powerful. I remember the first time I heard that lyric, it was just powerful for my soul, right? Because there's lots of places in our lives that we feel like things have died or that things are struggling and that need life. And this world, this culture, it just doesn't offer us much of that. Sometimes little pieces here and there, and we get drawn into things that we feel like are feeding us for a moment, but ultimately, everything here must and will fail. And there's only one source of life, and it's the person of Jesus. And He says that. He said, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. And this is what I'm offering to you. Even to take the places where the enemy has tried to destroy you and tried to leave you without and bring life to it. And we're going to sing that this morning. searched the world, it couldn't feel me. A man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Here he is, and you came alone and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. This is easy, there's nothing better than him. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. It's who he is, the God of the mountain. It's the God of the valley. Is that true? There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you, Lord. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. I know it's true. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn grace into gardens. You turn mountains to olives. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing's better. He turns grace into gardens. Sing it out. You turn praise into gardens. You turn mountains to olives. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn praise into gardens. You turn mountains to sing this. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Just make that our prayer this morning. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you, God. Heavenly Father, this is our truth. There is just nothing that is better than you, God. So this morning, I just pray that you would remind us, you would teach us, you would draw us close, God. Because if we don't want to miss any of it, and not for our marriages, not for our children, not for our families or our friends, because you are the way, you are the truth, you are the life, God. The only life that's worth living. The only life that can turn a grave into a garden. Can turn a sea into a highway, that can move the obstacles or move us around them. And so Jesus, today, we just want to surrender our hearts and our minds and even our ears today, God, that we could hear your hope, your message, your love, and your truth for us. So draw us close, teach us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Grab a seat.
Our world can be a desolate and draining place. It can steal our hope and leave us running on empty. But then there are those people who live in the same world, yet they're hopeful. They have what seems to be an unshakable confidence in God, in spite of what they've seen, in spite of what they've experienced, in spite of what's happening around them. They don't have amazing beliefs. They have amazing faith. So where does that come from? And how do we get it? How do we rediscover and refuel our faith in a world that's running on empty?
I don't know about you, but I like singing and worshiping in a open space. And it's nice, isn't it? Golly, that's good. So thank you, band, for leading us. In a world that we kind of indwell right now, that's seemingly running on empty a lot of the times, I leave no stone unturned when it comes to finding encouragement, when it comes to finding things that will move me or inspire me. And so I thought I'd just lead off this morning telling you some of my favorite things that encourage me. So I'm a professional Christian, and that means I'm contractually obligated to tell you that the Scriptures inspire me, and they do. They encourage me. I do love reading the Scriptures. I love the gleaning insights, but also love when they find me right where I am. That's so encouraging. Again, same deal. I'm contractually obligated to say prayer, but I do love praying. I love being able to talk to God. Have you ever thought about that? That prayer is talking to God. You're talking to the one who made you. And I love the ability to be able to listen, or striving to listen during my day, communing with God through prayer. I get encouraged by listening to good music. When I listen to good music, it encourages me. It fires me up. It encourages my soul. And what's been neat as in my stage of parenting right now is that I've got two teenagers who are kind of starting to flap their wings musically and discovering their own music that they enjoy. And it's been fun to watch that. I'm encouraged by them and their music taste as well. Good conversations encourage me. I love having a good conversation. And so many of those good conversations I have with many of you. And one thing I love about good conversations, especially with many of you, is that there's very little pretense. There's very little mask wearing. We get to be honest. We get to be real. We get to say what we're feeling and what's going on. You villagers carry around this idea that we're a safe place here. You carry it around in everything you do. So good conversations encourage me. I'm a reader. Good books encourage me. I do enjoy sitting with a good book. I'm going to say good art, okay? But don't let that mislead you. I was not a guy who in college who ate up and loved every minute of my art appreciation class. That wasn't me. I do, though, like some good art. I like art that just kind of speaks to me. I went this week to Gainesville to what I thought was going to be a root canal, okay? And all of you right now are like, oh. But it turned out it was just a consult to a root canal. And I'm sitting there thinking, though, that I'm about to get a root canal. And they had this painting in the office there that I'm sitting in. This painting was kind of abstract, but it looked like you were looking toward the ocean. And there was like levels of the water, and all of a sudden I felt like I was on a beach. It was just the weirdest thing. And I appreciated them having that in this moment when I'm scared to death. I don't like people being in my mouth, right, with fooling around in there. It's like I wasn't looking forward to that root canal, but that art meant something to me. Same way with when I see art on film. That the past few weeks, Lane and Beth and I have been watching a docuseries on National Geographic called 9/11 One Day in America. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you're familiar with it. I've been so encouraged by watching this docuseries because, okay, that was such a terrible event. And so much of this, as we were watching, it's like, oh, that's awful, it's brutal, it's terrible. But you're watching people rally together. You're watching heroism. You're watching people who don't know each other come to each other's aid. It's really something else watching that. I'd recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. It's called 9/11 One Day in America. And then finally, and strangely, I've been encouraged lately through suffering. Through suffering, right? And that's one that we don't really look for and say, hey, where can I go for encouragement? Well, let's go to suffering. But you and I both have heard stories of people or known people who have this unshakable faith, don't we? These people that no matter what has happened to them, that they still seem to be okay, that they still seem to cling to this never-ending confidence in the God who is, the God who is in control. They can't be shaken because of that. Regardless of what life may throw at them, they have this confidence. It's been a rough few weeks in our communities, as both in Murphy and here in Hayesville, there's been losses that have just devastated our communities. And one here in Hayesville involving some folks that we have known. And you know, in those moments, you want to be a help, right? You want to try to lean in and help and inspire. And so I was keeping up through the husband here, through his Facebook posts. For those of you who don't know, that a beloved member of the faculty over here at Hayesville passed away in the last week or so. And so I was going and keeping up with what was going on the husband's social media page. And the weirdest thing kept happening. I'd go over there, and I was hoping, I was like, God, whatever I can do, whatever I can say to help encourage, whatever I can be help here. And every time I'd read his posts, he'd say something that would encourage me. And you're like, God, this is kind of sick and twisted, right? I should be encouraging him, but he keeps encouraging me with the things he's writing about. I mean, here's this husband whose wife is fighting for her life, and he is fighting on behalf of his wife and his children. And here I want to be someone who encourages him, yet every time I come to his posts, I'm encouraged by what he's writing, by what he's saying. It's wild. And then I've got some friends who, they're a little further ahead of me, and they've been in ministry for most of their lives, and these guys have experienced the gamut of church ministry. They've experienced the highs, and they've experienced some super duper lows. I mean, terrible things. When I hear their story, I always shudder a little bit. It's like, oh, that terrible things were done to them in the name of God and to their families. And I'm like, golly, I don't know how, one, I don't know how you didn't walk away from church. Two, I don't know how, maybe even you didn't walk away from God because of the things that have happened to you. But these guys are two of the most incredible men of faith. Right? They have this faith that they're just full of it. They're rich in their faith. And I look at them and think, how do you manage to hold on to that going through all that you've been through? And I think most of us know people like that, don't we? We know somebody like that. And there's something about these people who have experienced such things that reaches right to us, all the way from them and their experience right to us. Like I think I'm called to inspire them, and then they encourage and they inspire me, because there's something going on at the core level of who they are, isn't there? Like something going on at their very core. They experience suffering, pain, disappointment within the framework, within the template and context of a God who knows them and who they know him, and a God who cares, and a God who they know just may intervene. It's not that they have these impeccable beliefs, right? It's not that they say all the right things, believe all the right things, do all the right things. They just actually have this incredible faith. This incredible faith. It's a powerful and feisty confidence that God has a say in everything they say and in everything they do and how they respond and how they make decisions. Have you ever wondered where that comes from? Have you ever seen somebody like this and thought, man, did they just wake up one day and bam, they're super faith person? How does that happen to them? How does someone become a person who is able to trust that everything's going to be okay even when it's not okay? Have you ever thought, how do I become a person like that? How do we come to that point? So I'm glad you're here today, because I think you and I, when we look at these folks, that we realize there's something that they have that we want. And I don't know where you are this morning as you come in on the faith spectrum, right? Maybe you're new to faith and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just trying this out. I'm supposed to get involved and do what I can. And you're trying on this faith stuff. Maybe you've been at this faith thing for a long time, and you've had moments recently where you are really wavering. Like you have seen things done, you have seen people respond, and you're like, God, I don't know. Maybe you've actually walked away from faith, and now you're trying to come back. Someone invited you here to Village. One, we're so thankful for that person that did. Two, we're incredibly glad you're here. Because over the next several weeks, we're going to look at what makes these people with incredible faith. How do they get there? How do they become people of incredible faith? How do we become people that when we walk through tough stuff, that we encourage others? Have you ever wondered what encouraged Jesus? Have you ever wondered what was it that Jesus was just like, yeah, that's good right there, that's good. Like maybe he had a top 10 things that encourage him list. Like maybe it was the way Peter cooked fish, right? He went out and caught them, and they came back. They had a cookout there, and Peter had his secret sauce he kept putting on the fish. You're like, good gracious, this is good. What'd you put in there? Or maybe a little dash of this and a pinch of that. That Peter had something good he was putting in that fish. Maybe he loved the way John gave high fives. He was the beloved disciple after all. That John had like secret handshakes for people, like one of these, you shake it. Pew, pew, like one of those, like he had a secret handshake. Maybe what encouraged Jesus was standing in the sand that he created and feeling it between his toes as he looked out in the ocean. All right, that's incredibly encouraging to me. Maybe that encouraged him as well. Have you ever wondered what gave Jesus a sense of renewal, a sense of fresh air for his soul? Disclaimer, of course, it wasn't his relationship to God, but what were the things right here and right now that encouraged Jesus? What charged his batteries? I once heard a pastor say this, and it's stuck with me. He said, when you read the Gospels, you can see two things that amaze or excite, and for our case today, we'll use the word encourage Jesus. Two things that light him up. When you look through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And those two things are really two different sides of a coin, right? One side of a coin, the other side of a coin, those things that encourage or do the opposite to Jesus. And we're going to look at those two things, both sides of that coin today, okay? And so we're going to start by looking in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew is the first book in the New Testament, and Matthew was a fascinating guy because Matthew was a guy that knew what it was like for people to hate him. He knew what it was like for people to hate him because Matthew was a Jewish tax collector, and that meant a couple things. It meant that quite often that he was hated by his fellow Jews because he was looked at as a sellout for Rome, right? You're working for Rome, you're taking taxes from your fellow Jewish people, you're a sellout, so Matthew, Jewish folks hate you. He was hated by Romans because he was Jewish. So Matthew has this interesting perspective on the world, okay? And in Matthew chapter 8, beginning in verse 5, he tells us a story about something that encourages Jesus. And here's what's been happening. Jesus has been conducting his earthly ministry. He is doing incredible things. People are coming to see him, sold out shows all over the place. They are flocking to see Jesus. And in Matthew chapter 8, verse 5, we read this. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, right? So this is his next stop on his world tour. A centurion came to him asking for help. A centurion comes up to Jesus asking for help. Now, it's helpful to know what a centurion is, okay? A centurion is a high up in the Roman Empire, in the Roman army. He's a guy with a lot of influence. He's a guy with a lot of authority. And a centurion would be responsible for a century of people. When I read that, and when I hear that, you know what I think? Oh, he's responsible for 100. Do you know if it was Jeopardy, I would be wrong with that? Did you know, and I read this in some scholars' work, so hopefully this is true. Fingers crossed. A century in those days, he was responsible for about 80 guys. 80 guys, all right? So 80 guys are under this centurion. They are under his command, 80 soldiers. And this centurion is a guy who people would look to as being powerful, having authority, being a who's who. Like this is a job you want to have in the Roman Empire. He's not your normal person that's coming to Jesus. All right, he's not your normal guy coming to Jesus to ask for something. But he comes up to Jesus. In verse 6, he says this, Lord, he said. That's an interesting way for this guy to address Jesus. Often when you see in the Gospels, people will often call Jesus rabbi. They'll call him teacher. Some of them will use religious language. They'll call him son of man. But here this guy says, Lord. And what he's saying is, I recognize something in you. You are one with authority. You're a Lord over something. So he addresses him in that way. He uses some of his authoritative language to address Jesus. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly. He's got a need. Someone close to him, someone he cares about, is hurting. And he comes to Jesus. Lord, one with authority. This person is hurting. I need your help. They need your help. And then Jesus says in verse 7, shall I come and heal him? Is that what you want me to do? Is that what you'd like for me to do? Verse 8, though, the centurion replied, Lord, there it is again, one with authority, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. You see him? He's recognizing chain of command here. I do not deserve that. Like you got authority that I don't have. I have authority, but I'm here, you're there. You don't have to do that. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. Again, he recognizes something in Jesus. Now, I don't know where the centurion's been. I don't know if he's been sneaking into some of these Jesus rallies where he's healing people and teaching these incredible things about the kingdom of God. I don't know where he's been, if he's been an onlooker from the outside. We don't know that. But this is a guy that wouldn't normally come to Jesus. But this is a guy that recognizes Jesus has authority. And that authority extends to his servant paralyzed back at the house. Just say the word. Just say the word. And he goes on to say this, for I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I know how this works. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And that would come and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. I say, jump, they say, how high, right? He says, I know what it's like to have authority. Centurion comes to Jesus. Can you heal my servant? Can you heal my servant? Jesus offers to follow home. Centurion says, I know how this works. You don't have to do that. Just like that, you can do this. This is how it works. And then he starts talking about his authority. And he's saying, the folks who are under me don't do things for me because of me. Right? The people who work under me, they're not following me. They're doing things because of who I represent. Right? That I represent the Roman Empire, the biggest bad, like the Empire in Star Wars. I'll use Star Wars here in a minute again, spoiler alert. I represent them, right? The biggest bads in the history of the world as up to this point. The Roman Empire. That's who I represent. So if you cross me, you're crossing the Roman Empire. I see how this works. Because me, the centurion would say, I'm just Joe who happens to look after 100 men. I'm a centurion. I thought it was going to be 100, but it turns out it's just 80. So that was kind of a disappointment. But I'm just Joe. But who I work for, that's what they respect. I represent them. And by saying Lord, he's saying, Jesus, I recognize there's something going on here. You represent something bigger than just you. Bigger even than the Roman Empire, the biggest bads on the block. If you want to heal my servant, Lord, you can just do it. That's how easy it can be. That's how this can work. Verse 10 says this, when Jesus heard this, he was amazed. He was amazed. We'd say he's encouraged. He was impressed. He was astonished. He was like, what? Right? What did it? What caused this? See, people asked Jesus for favors all the time, didn't they? They're always asking Jesus for favors. Can you imagine being a friend of Jesus's and walking around town and you couldn't get anywhere because everybody was stopping him all the time to talk to him and ask him something? It's kind of like being a friend of Andrew Brown's here in Hayesville, right? You run to Ingles and you're like, this should take like 5 minutes, and Andrew meets 30 people he knows. And you're like, man, I just wanted lunch, and now it's supper time. I'm just kidding. That's because they love you, Andrew. But that's what's happening here. And people are asking Jesus for favors all the time. He actually just come from healing a man with leprosy. But you don't read about Jesus being amazed. You don't read about him doing cartwheels, about going up to John, getting dapped up with one of those secret handshakes he gives. You don't read about that. Fortunately, though, Jesus tells us what's going on. Jesus was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Jesus was amazed and encouraged by this guy's faith, a faith that he was putting into practice. Do you realize what this guy was risking to come to Jesus? All right, what if someone tells the boss about what this centurion has done? Oh, now you're going to this guy for answers. So well, if he's got the answers, you just go right on, follow him, keep going. Right? He's risking a lot here. And the centurion, again, we don't know how close he's been to Jesus' ministry, but he sees Jesus having this authority, and he does the math. He's like, because he's a Lord. He's over something here. He's saying to Jesus, if you choose to do this, you don't need to come home with me to do it. You can just make it happen. Crazy, crazy fun fact, I once heard a pastor say. Jesus never marveled at anyone's knowledge or obedience. The two things that if you've grown up in church, that we tend to look at and be like, oh, well, you need to lead this place. You've got knowledge and you obey very well, right? Jesus never marveled at those things. I grew up in church. I know that knowledge and obedience, those are the two things that move you up the ranks in a church. But that's not what Jesus marveled at. He was amazed by this guy, Joe, the centurion, whatever his name was, with a faith that was lived out right where he was. And then skipping down to verse 13, Jesus said to the centurion, go. Go. I love when Jesus tells somebody to go, because it's like, get out of here. Go do. Go do. Let it be done, just as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that moment. Wow. Wow. Centurion comes to Jesus. Heal my servant. I recognize there's authority here, and I believe, I trust in that, and Jesus is encouraged. Okay, that's one side of the coin. Then there's the other side of the coin, okay? And the other side of the coin we see in Mark's gospel. There's Matthew, then there's Mark. Mark is believed to have been the first gospel that was written, that he's the guy hitting lead off in terms of chronology when he's writing. And in Mark chapter 6, he writes about, again, Jesus is touring around. He's seeing places. He's going. He's preaching. He's healing. He's doing these incredible things in God's name. And he comes to his hometown. Now, we all know there's weird hometown dynamics, aren't there? Have you ever moved away and then come back to your hometown and it's just a little weird? Or have you stayed in your hometown and it's still weird, right? There's weird hometown dynamics that tend to be at play. Well, Jesus goes back to his hometown, all right? And in verse 3 of Mark chapter 6, after Jesus has been doing all these healings and teaching, it's going great. People are like, yeah, Jesus has come home. This is cool. Well, then some murmuring starts, which can happen in your hometown. Actually, that can happen anywhere. Welcome to 21st century world. Some murmuring starts. In verse 3, this is what the people say. Isn't this the carpenter? Can't you just hear the snideness in that? The contempt. Isn't this the carpenter? Didn't this dude make tables for a living till up to a few years ago? Isn't this him? I think I have a table of his at my house. Isn't this him? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Didn't my kids go to 3rd grade with him? Isn't that who this kid is? Aren't his sisters here with us? Then you can almost hear them continue. He's not that special. He's not that special, right? He's just one of us. But now he thinks he's better than us. It's like mob movies. You think you're better than me? You think you're better than me? Right? That's how they see you. You think you're better than, oh, now you're better than me, right? You see this. It starts, so you see the issue here. So what was Jesus' response? Pew, chicken, pew, rat, pew, roach. No, he didn't do that. That'd be the false gospel. That would be funny, but he didn't do that. No. Verse 6 says this. He was amazed at their lack of faith. He was discouraged. Here are these people that I know. You should be right here seeing what we're doing. Haven't I been with you? And you're like, oh, you think you're better than me? That's what I'm getting from you? Discouraged at their lack of faith. So there it is. There are two things that amazed Jesus. Encourage/discourage Jesus. Great faith or a lack of faith. Great faith or a lack of faith. So let's dissect faith for a minute, because it's easy to misunderstand, isn't it? Faith is easy to misunderstand. See, Jesus' mission for the first century folks there, folks in his hometown, folks in Capernaum, and his mission for folks in the 21st century are to be followers whose lives are marked by faith. That we live lives that are marked by faith, a strong faith in who Jesus is. But this is where we can get confused about the message of Jesus. A few things. Did you know there's no such thing as a person without faith? No such thing as a person without faith. They don't exist. Everybody has faith. Even the hardest atheist out there, they have faith. You can't live without faith. Just consider this morning, okay? You got up, maybe you got in the shower. You had faith that there's going to be hot water coming out of that spigot, didn't you? That's what you had faith in. You had faith that whatever you ate for breakfast, that it was going to taste good and it was going to be good. You had faith that when you got in your car, you turned the key, the car's going to crank, or you push the button, which maybe you have a newfangled car. You did that. You had faith that when you drove it, it was going to get you from your home to Village. By the way, thanks for coming. You had faith that when you sat in that chair you're sitting in, it was going to hold you. The lights are low. You can't see this, but some of those chairs are a little wobbly, so I'm glad your faith paid off. You had faith that this roof that is now much higher than it was a couple weeks ago, not the roof, but the ceiling, that it will not fall in on us. By the way, that'd be terrible. If it happens, I didn't do that. You have faith that wherever you're going after this, you're going to have lunch and it's going to be good. You have faith in the people that you hang out with. They're going to be good to you. You exercise faith all the time. We all do. There's no such thing as a person without faith. We all have faith. We all have faith. But we can get confused about this idea of faith that Jesus is talking about here, can't we? We can treat it like it's the Force from Star Wars, right? Like some green puppet supposed to teach you how to use it, right? There is no try, only do, right? Like that's what we think. Like if I just learn the ways of the Force, Jesus, then I'll be your Jedi. It breaks down a little bit, but it's not the Force. We treat it like it's some sort of feel-good optimism, right? We're walking around with our fingers crossed all the time. Woo-hoo-hoo. We got our lucky rabbit's foot. Don't step on a crack or break your mama's what? Back. We all know this. We treat it like it's feel-good optimism. We treat it like it's a feeling. Well, if it feels good, then it must be right. If it doesn't, then it must not be right. Man, be careful following your feelings. Be careful. We say it all the time around here. Feelings are great indicators. They're terrible leaders, right? They're terrible leaders. Faith, okay? Unlike the Force, unlike a feeling, unlike optimism, always has an object. Faith is always pointing you in a direction to something or somebody. Faith has an object. A guy named Tim Keller says this: imagine that you're falling off a cliff, and sticking out of the cliff is a branch that is strong enough to hold you, but you don't know how strong it is. As you fall, you just have enough time to grab that branch. How much faith do you have to have in the branch for it to save you? Must you be totally sure that it can save you? No, of course not. You only have to have enough faith to grab the branch. That's because it's not the quality of your faith that saves you. It's the object of your faith that saves you. It doesn't matter how you feel about the branch. All that matters is the branch, and Keller says Jesus is the branch. It's not how much faith that you have to muster up and do faith push-ups with. It's the object of your faith and how strong that is. Or in this case, how strong He is. The object of your faith is the person you believe in or the product you believe in. Faith must always have an object. When you buy a product, you expect it to work, don't you? That's why we bought it in the first place. When I was a teenager, well, shoot, even now as an adult, confession time, I'll use stuff on my skin so I don't get zits. Teenagers, I wish I could tell you that gets better. I think I get acne worse now as an adult than back when I was a teenager. So I'm not a beacon of hope for you. I didn't mean to go in that direction. But anyway, when you buy something, you expect it to work, don't you? You put your faith in that product. That's why you bought it. That's why you bought it. Same with a person. You believe them to be who you believe them to be. The content of your faith is what you believe. And in saving faith, faith in Christ has a very specific object and a very specific content. It's not a particular outcome. It's the object. It's Jesus Himself. See, faith isn't thinking that everything is going to be fine and work out. That's more hope. It's more optimism. Jesus wasn't amazed at the centurion's hope and optimism. I sure hope Jesus can do this. He was amazed at his faith in Him. So the point of Jesus' earthly ministry, and continually the point of what He's doing, is to establish Himself as the object of our faith. That my faith is placed in Him. My faith in itself is not the strength here. The object of my faith is what's so strong. So over and over and over and over and over again, Jesus would call people to trust in Him, to have faith in Him. By the way, do you see how if Jesus wasn't who He said He was, He really comes off as a terrible person? There's a book written years ago, and it talked about how Jesus is either liar, lunatic, or Lord. That if He was lying, He's a terrible person. He's a lunatic, maybe he's just crazy. Or He's actually who He said He was, and He's Lord. On the night of His arrest, when Jesus and the disciples are gathered for the Last Supper, Jesus kind of gives them, hey, they don't all know what's about to happen, really, but Jesus, like, you guys, you got to know this, you got to know this, you got to know this. And at one point He tells them, don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God. He says, believe also in me. What He's telling them is, just like you believe in God, you can believe in me. Trust me like you trust God. Jesus established Himself as the object of our faith because something else was going on here. Jesus was making clear, I can be trusted. Me and God, we're together in this. And Jesus came to show us what God is like. There's a guy named Brian Zahn who always says this: God is like Jesus. God has always been like Jesus. There's never been a time when God was not like Jesus. We have not always known what God is like, but we do now. See, there were all these assumptions back in the first century about who God was, just like there are today. And Jesus comes and reveals what God's like. Can you imagine the people that were offended at this? For Jesus to say, you trust in God, trust in me as well. That is scandalous. We don't get how incredibly offensive that was back then. Jesus is saying, if you want to know what God's like, watch me, check me out, trust me, follow me. I will reveal the God who is. To take then your faith that we put in so many other places and to place it little by little in the person of Jesus. See, there's so many instances of this in the Bible, in the gospel. So many times that as miracles or teachings or healings revealed the heart of God. So the New Testament says he is the image of the invisible God. You want to know what God's like? Look to Jesus. He is the object of our faith. Not so we could just know more about him, but so that we could have a relationship with the creator of the world, with Jesus himself. Because after all, what do we value in relationships? Bring it full circle. We value trust, don't we? We value trust. We trust each other. Your best friends aren't people that you're like, hey, man, when I hang out with them, we eat good. What? No. When I hang out with them, I trust them. They trust me. I can be myself. That encourages us. We value trust. Remember back to the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve, right at the beginning of things. Doggone Adam and Eve. By the way, we'd be crazy to think that we probably wouldn't do the same thing. Adam and Eve, what'd they do? They chose not to trust God. They chose to trust something other than God. But God reveals himself to you and me through Jesus. And Jesus continued to invite people to trust him. And when they did, they were trusting and relating to who he was there on behalf of, to God the Father. And see, this is still what God does for you and me, calling us day in and day out to trust, to be full of faith, not in ourselves, not in the people around us, not in our culture, not in products, but in him, in Jesus. And this is one of the ways we continue to measure how we grow in our faith. Do I trust him more today than I did yesterday? There's this question a guy named C.S. Lewis raised in his book, Mere Christianity. When he says this, he says, what would I do if I believed with all that is within me that God loved me unconditionally? What would I do if I believed with all that is within me that God loved me unconditionally? What would I do if I trusted Jesus with all that's within me? What would I go and do? And I'm sure when we come to that answer, that Jesus would be attached to it and would be there saying, hey, we'll go and do it. Go and do that. See, you and I know people like that. We do. We know people like that. Some of you are people like that. We know people who are inspiring. We know people who forgive, people who love, people who show up, people whose faith affects everything they do. When we catch a glimpse of that, we want that, don't we? Because it's encouraging and inspires. And we wonder, where did they get that from? Where did it come from? Look at the opposition they've gone through. Look at the suffering they've experienced. And yet they still have this faith. Man, I hope when I grow up, I have that kind of faith. So, over the next few weeks, we hope you'll come back as we talk about some of the ways we go about growing in faith. Some of the ways that men, women, and students throughout the centuries have grown. And we're going to talk about 5 things. And now there's probably 20. There might only be 3, and we made up 2 of them. But these things that we've seen over and over again, and that we actually, we've seen them taught, are incredible ways of growing in our faith. So as we close today, and we talk about what faith looks like, I want to give you 2 invitations. 2 invitations. One, I'd invite you to come back as we continue to talk about what growing in our faith looks like. Paul talks about like when he was a child, he thought as a child, he did as a child, he believed as a child, all this stuff. When I was a child, I had a childlike faith. Maybe more of a childish faith. But as we grow, does our faith grow with us? Is my faith bigger today than when I was 10? I sure hope so. And I hope that for you as well. So I invite you to come back as we talk about the things that grow us up in our faith. Second invitation is this, that maybe you're here today. You've heard about this Jesus guy. You've got friends who are a little, let's just be honest, they're a little crazy when it comes to this Jesus stuff. That's okay. Maybe we just don't understand them fully what they're doing. You've got other folks in your life who are telling you other things about Jesus, but you're intrigued. And you think, man, Jesus keeps calling me to trust him, and he is either liar, lunatic, or Lord. And man, I don't think he's a liar or a lunatic. I got to deal with that. That maybe the invitation for you today would be that you would today take some of that faith that you're putting every other place. You start putting it in Jesus. It's not the strength of your faith that saves you. It's the strength of the object. It's the strength of Jesus that does. And if that's you today, there are cards somewhere in a chair near you that say, I've decided. And if you want to just, maybe it looks like a few simple steps. Maybe it looks like you filling that out and dropping it in a basket as you leave. And we'll get up with you this week, just tell you what that looks like. Maybe that involves you. Andrew and I will be hanging out here in front of the stage, Robbie as well, after the service, that we'd love to talk with you about what that looks like. Or maybe you just want to find someone you trust, call someone you trust, you're in a relationship with, you have faith in, and tell them what that looks like. However you need to respond, may you do so today. Listen, I want to be the type of person that my faith encourages you and the people around me. I want to be that person. But I know that to be that person, I'm going to have to walk through some stuff. And my faith is going to have to continue to grow. So join us in the next few weeks as we talk about what it is that grows our faith. Let's pray together. Father, thank you. Thank you for thank you for what you've given us, the gift that is Jesus. That God, when I don't understand, when I am struggling, when my faith is wavering, that Jesus is there reminding me, God, of who you are and how you love and what you've done for me. And God, that encourages me. That reminds me of your love for me. So, Father, in this world where you've told us we will have troubles, help us to hang on and to trust in you. Because, Jesus, you told us you have overcome. So, God, help us every day put our faith a little more in the direction of Jesus. And as we do, that it would change us from the inside out, that it would move us, that we would be the people that you called us to be, and that people around us would know who you are because of who you are in us. God, change our world because you're changing us. And do it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Josh. And thank you. Thanks for being here today. I do hope that over the next few weeks you'll come back. I like to think that every week we're doing our very best to be practical in what we teach and what we hand you, and that literally our hope is that when you walk out those doors, if you choose to, that we've handed you something that you can put into play immediately. But this series that we're going through, and some of you that have been here for a while, as we go through this series, will be like, I think I've heard this. You have, because this is one of the most practical things we talk about here. It impacted me almost 20 years ago when I was really beginning to try to lean in and understand how my faith was growing. And so this is one of those things we just like to hand off again and again and again, because our mission is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And that thing that we want to see grow is your faith. And so I get so excited when it comes to especially this series right here. So lean in with us over the next few weeks. We hope that you will. If you're visiting today, I know Josh said at the beginning, grab one of those first cards, fill it out, take it back to the desk back there, drop it off. We have a gift for you. Baskets are in the back. And I would say this, Josh mentioned it at the beginning as well, but high five offering today, that's a special offering. If you've got something you want to throw in there, we call it high five because it's our way just of high-fiving people in the community, coming around people, trying to encourage them. And so the people we're really trying to encourage right now in this time is some of our healthcare and medical workers. We just want to be able to walk alongside them and say, whether it's just feeding them or encouraging them and say, hey, thank you. We know that it's an exhausting time for you too right now, and we just want to, we want you to know that we're for you, we're with you. So if you've got something that you want to drop in there as well, thank you for helping us help them or encourage them and come alongside them. Hub, 6 o'clock, right here tonight, 6th through 12th grade students. We would love to see you. We're going to have a big time right here tonight. And the rest of you, we hope to see you back here next Sunday. Join us at 10. Hope you have a great, great week.